The secret is food. That sounds really boring, but it really is like the secret if you think about it logically. And the secret that really comes into this is figuring that part of the equation out, which is much more difficult than you think it is. So recently, I came across a YouTube, or I don't know if it's a YouTube short or if it's a Instagram reel or whatever these things are. I don't know one from another. There was a clip, and it was Jay Cutler, and they asked him, how much money did you spend on food? And he was like, $50,000 a year. I just want you to stop and pay attention to that for a second. In order to get that big, he's eating $50,000 worth of food per year. Which reminds me of Ed Cohn. Ed Cohn was talking about training with Brian Shaw, and he was talking about how all Brian does is eat. It's like we would finish eating, and he'd be like, oh, hey, on the way over, there's this restaurant. Let's stop and get something to eat. And then he would eat something again and eat something again. And reminds me of Justin Harris talking about Nick Walker bringing Tupperware to his own birthday party so he could eat chicken and rice. Oh, man. I'm sure you've heard this before. Okay, these losers, these amateurs, they sit around and talk about drugs and cycles. You sit and talk to pros, and what do they talk about? Food. That's all they talk about, food. How to eat more, how to get better food, better digestion, whatever it is. They're constantly trying to figure out the food. So you look at Jay Cutler. Wow, $50,000 a year on food. My question to you, this is sort of facetious, but before you decide to hop on the latest cycle and all these SARMs and peptides, which are magically going to make your physique just amazing, how much food are you eating? I did a video on this the other day talking about people having low testosterone because they don't eat enough. You need to eat at least 45 kcal per kilo of fat-free mass, and for most of you who are training hard, you should probably just be eating 45 calories per kilo of body weight. If you want good hormonal function, good health, good training, good quality training, you want to make progress in the gym, forget the whole bullshit about fat-free mass and stuff. Just start eating 45 calories per kilo of body weight. Yeah, it'll definitely make you a better athlete. I don't think you guys understand this, and I don't mean this like in a negative way, but there is a cost of being lean that actually impairs your performance. So like when you see bodybuilders step on stage, they're actually very weak. They look strong. But the day you step on the stage for the Olympia, they're actually at their weakest. They're depleted. You don't perform well walking around with, shredded six-pack abs and being depleted. You perform well when you're well fed. Radical concept. So the thing here you have to pay attention to is figuring out the side of the equation, which is food. And I've been called a charlatan and all these awful names by, the science-based fitness influencers, because I tell people it really is as simple as eating meat and rice. Meat and rice 6 to 8 times a day. That's it. I know, and people don't want to believe that. People want to make it more complicated. You can IIFYM all this junk food in there, and as long as you hit your protein macro, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, sure, you can do 1 meal a day, and I mean, I guess if you want, I'm sure someone has attempted it. You could eat, 500 grams of protein and, 1,200 grams of carbs in a single meal. I suppose you could. I don't know how long it would take you to eat that meal. I feel like you would be sitting there for a very long time. It's probably easier for you to break that up across the day into multiple meals. Just guess. I'm just thinking about things reasonably. And unless you spend your whole day cooking, it's probably a lot easier for you to do the Chad's Instapot trick, where I tell you guys the same thing over and over again. I wake up in the morning, I throw 3 pounds of meat into the Instapot, I throw in some frozen vegetables, maybe add some rice, and put the lid on, push the slow cook button, and walk away. I'm not going to spend my whole day in the kitchen cooking. That'd be a nightmare. Can you imagine how much time you'd have to spend cooking if you wanted to cook each meal individually? That'd be a pain in the ass. That's why it's easier just to eat meat and rice. And easy, simple is sustainable. It means you're not going to miss meals. It means you're going to have food. In fact, here's a trick for you. I did this whenever I was at Mayo Clinic because my day was a little different, my schedule. I would, before I went to bed, I threw 3 pounds of meat into the Instapot. I dumped some frozen vegetables in there, and then I threw some rice in there, and I put the lid on, and I pushed slow cook. And when I woke up in the morning, it was done. So then I just shoveled it out into little Pyrex containers, put those in a cooler, and I took those with me to the hospital. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, I woke up in the morning and my food for the entire day was already cooked. Convenient. Very, very convenient. The food is the side of the equation that everyone needs to figure out. And the secret, right? The secret is whoever can eat the most meat and rice for 10 years straight ends up being the big dude on stage, right? But I'm here to tell you that this applies even to your performance. You're not a bodybuilder, or maybe you are, but I'm not. I'm not a bodybuilder. But what I am is I'm someone who is still pursuing fitness goals. And I still feel that food is the most important part of the equation. It is. There's no drug out there that's going to replace food. I don't care what someone tells you. You know, you've been sold lies, and there's a bunch of bullshit on Reddit. Reminds me, I saw a TikTok thing. Chris Bell shared it on his like Bigger, Faster, Stronger Instagram. Some dude started taking tren and he gained all this muscle. Ooh, he's like 6'2" and 140 pounds or something. But what I thought was more interesting, if you pay attention, you listen, he says, oh, you know, I gained all this muscle. I gained 12 pounds of muscle in 12 weeks or something like that, right? Pay attention to what he's saying, though. What did he say? He said, yeah, I started taking tren and it made me so hungry. I was just eating all the time. What if you just ate and you weren't taking tren? You're 6'2" and you're very, very underweight. What if you just started eating? What if that's the real magic? What if the real magic here isn't that you started taking tren? I mean, it is. I mean, that's going to make a difference. But what if the real factor, what is the most important factor, was the fact that you started lifting hard and eating? Radical concept. You mean eating food might make you gain weight if you eat more and then you train harder? What if the drugs aren't really the major thing? What if the tren doesn't matter? What if the real factor here is that you're eating more? You know, guys go on TRT and they're like, oh, I gained all this muscle. And I always ask them the same thing. Did you start eating more? And they go, yeah, man. As soon as I started it, I started eating so much more. I was hungry all the time. I'm like, do you think you gained the weight because you were eating more? Oh, no. It's definitely the TRT. I'll tell you what, not on TRT, if you bump your calories up by, say, even just 500 calories a day, you're going to see the weight on the scale go up. You're probably going to have better, harder workouts. You're going to come in, you're going to have more energy because you're well fed. You're going to train really fucking hard. Now, instead of doing 225 for a set of 10, you're getting 225 for a set of 12. Do you think those extra 2 reps matter? I bet they do, actually. I believe that extra 2 reps matters because that's you getting progress there. Instead of squatting, 315, you squat 325. And then the next week is 335. And, you're getting beginner gains. What's going on here? Well, you started eating. You started putting more food into the system. You have more energy to train. It's an amazing thing. I talk to lots of people who do the keto diet. And I'm not anti-keto diet, but I do believe the keto diet is a tool. You have to use it strategically. So they've been doing the keto diet, and they're not getting any bigger, and they're not getting any stronger, and all this stuff like that. And I tell them, well, why don't you try just like a high-carb, low-fat diet for, 12 weeks. And people come back to me 4 weeks later, and they're like, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, I probably will believe it. I've put 20 pounds on my back squat. Yeah, of course you did. Because you were doing sets of 10 with 185, And then you started hammering the carbs, which allowed you to do sets of 12, 15 with 185, which meant that you were now able to squat 205. Like, shocker. You mean if you lift more reps and heavier weights, you get stronger? You mean if you have more energy when you go to the gym? And this shouldn't why do people like to use pre-workouts? You're using all this caffeine and all these stimulants because it gives you more energy. Well, you know what else gives you more energy? Eating. Eating gives you more energy. And I'll give you a tip here. For those of you who are dieting, okay, and you are trying to restrict your carbohydrates, here's a little tip, okay? Glucose tablets, they sell them in the diabetes section. You can try just starting with one. You can just start with one glucose tablet. Take that, 20 to 30 minutes before your training session. If that works well for you, try two. This is not a ton of carbs. This is not a ton of carbs. Like, this is not going to be like, oh my gosh, you're going to get fat from one glucose tablet or two glucose tablets. But I promise you, this is Chad making you a promise, and I don't make promises. Ask my wife. I never make promises about anything. I've made 2 promises in my whole life, and unfortunately I was unable to keep one of those, but that's a bizarre circumstance. Sometimes people die. That's an awful thing. What an awful thing to have to discuss. Anyways, I promise you, though, that if you are on a low-carb diet and you throw a glucose tablet into your workout, you will have a better workout. Yes, you will. You're going to train better. You're going to get more reps. It's going to feel better. You're going to it will also blunt cortisol, so you'll have less muscle breakdown. This is just basic human physiology. And that is from a simple glucose tablet. You do not have to sit down and eat. Oh, I got to sit down and eat 500 grams of rice before my workout. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can have a glucose tablet, and you will notice a difference. Even if you are on a low-carb diet. If you are on a low-carb diet and you throw that glucose tablet in, it'll make a difference. If you're already on a high-carb diet, and you're eating 1,000 grams of carbs a day, you are not going to notice anything from that one glucose tablet. So, like, I'm not trying to say glucose tablets are magical. If you're already eating, 400, 500 grams of carbs a day, a glucose tablet is not going to make a difference. But if you are someone who's doing low carb and you're getting like 30 grams of carbs per day, and that's mostly from vegetables, that glucose tablet is going to have a big effect. It's a contextual thing here. The point that I'm sharing here is see, just like that, the food makes a big difference, okay? And the question you have to figure out, and this is what I've discussed over and over and over again, is how do you eat more? It's called building your metabolism. I know people are like, that's not possible. But if it's not possible, then where the fuck do we get things like reverse dieting from? Okay, Nathan Payton, I recommend him to everyone. If you haven't, looked up these people, Justin Harris is fantastic. John Jewett, Chris Tuttle, Nathan Payton, these are all great people for you to look to. Paul Barnett, I don't want to forget Paul. Hey Paul, shout out here. I was one of your first subscribers way back in the day. I was commenting on your early videos. I just found them interesting. You seem like a cool dude. You've obviously gotten really popular, and that's great. I actually think it's awesome that you got popular because you're honest, and most people aren't honest. So more people should follow Paul. I don't know how many subscribers he has now. I think it's like 17,600 or something like that. He should have way more than that. Stop following losers. Stop following liars. Stop following people who bullshit you. Paul is putting out very good content, very good information. Boy, I could go in so many directions at this point, but let's get back to food. Paul will tell you, meat, rice, repeat. Go follow him on Instagram. It's the same damn foods over and over and over again. Meat and rice, meat and rice, meat and rice, meat and rice. How many times do you have to say meat and rice? That's what it is. And for those of you who aren't trying to get as big as possible, because maybe you aren't. Maybe you're like me, and you're not trying to get to be the biggest guy. You're going to have meat and vegetables. And you're going to have some rice. You're going to have some sweet potatoes. You're going to have, some other carbs in there. You're going to have some fruit. But you're not going to push meat and rice around the clock. I've said this before. My breakfast, I like to have, Greek yogurt, and I have some fruit. It's really simple. You should keep it simple because simple is sustainable and it makes it possible for you to be consistent, okay? It doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be incredible. You don't have to have like gourmet poached eggs with, hollandaise sauce on asparagus for breakfast. You can have a container of Greek yogurt, because you literally just open it and eat it with a spoon, and grab an apple. Okay? And like I said, the slow cooker trick. You put things in the slow cooker, and magically, when you come back, you have food cooked and ready and made for you. Really is that simple. You guys don't have to, have gourmet meals for every meal. And my point here is, here's a radical concept. If you want to gain weight, push the carbs up. If you want to lose weight, reduce the carbs. I know that sounds terrible, because Alan Aragon says you can lose weight while eating carbs. And that's certainly, you could. However, you'll notice something really interesting. Every single bodybuilder out there, all of them, when they're losing weight and they're losing fat and they're cutting for their show, they cut carbs. Oh, wait a minute. All these guys who get crazy shredded lean do that by cutting carbs. Now, don't get me wrong. They're not on zero carb. They cut from 1,000 carbs a day to 400 or 500 grams of carbs a day. They're cutting carbs, though. They're eating less carbs. Radical concept. And of course, by reducing their carbohydrate intake, they are reducing their caloric intake. So it's not like these things are inextricable. You can't reduce carbs without reducing your calories whenever you're keeping your protein consistent and keeping your fats consistent, because you're getting your fats from the proteins. So, you're eating steak. Steak is protein and fat. And then you reduce your rice intake, and magically, somehow we reduced the carbs, but it didn't reduce the calories. Of course it reduced calories. But you understand what I'm explaining here. Figuring out the food is the major component. Why is Jay Cutler so goddamn big? Do you think he's taking something that, isn't available to other people? Why is Big Ramy so big? Why is Nick Walker so big? What is their secret? Are they doing something? Are they taking something that you don't have access to, that other people don't have access to? No, it's because they committed to eating around the clock for 10 years straight. And that is the game. It is food and time, because muscle growth is slow. You can only grow about 24 to 25 grams of muscle in 24 hours. So, it's slow progress. Nick Walker gained about 10 pounds a year. That's very slow progress when you think about it. I know, you think you gain 20 pounds in a month, but I promise you most of that's just water. It's water and glycogen. You can gain a lot of fat real fast too, but in terms of you gaining muscle is very slow. So for you to gain 10 pounds of muscle, it'll take a year. That's why doing, super bulking, where you just eat 10,000 calories a day of garbage, just makes you fat. You can only grow muscle so fast. So once you're eating enough to grow that muscle, you don't need to add in an extra 6,000 calories. You can't force feed muscle growth. And so the secret to these guys, why are they so big? It's not because they're taking some magical drug. It's not because of gene doping. It's not because of peptides or SARMs. It's because they eat, and they eat more than you, and they eat consistently, and they do it for 10 years straight. The secret is the food.